All right, thank you guys for joining us today. Thank you for taking some time out of your summer break to join us for our PD today. Today we're going to be talking about preparing for distance learning, and we're going to kind of talk about all the things that you can do and kind of go through to prepare yourself for the beginning of our school year, which is next week already. I can't believe it's already next week. So we're going to talk about things like setting up your Google Classroom. We're going to talk about some auto rostering with Aeries, setting up your clever teacher page. We're going to go through and review some Google Meet and Zoom settings and much more. So we're just going to kind of go over all the things that you need to kind of look at when you're preparing for distance learning. We're going to kind of hit on a lot of things today, but then in upcoming PDs, we'll kind of dive deeper into these topics.
And just for our agenda today, we're going to first start off with Aeries, so creating your Google Classroom from Aeries. We're going to talk about just the basics with Google Classroom navigation, especially what you need to do for the beginning of the year. We're going to cover transferring grades from Google Classroom to Aeries, Seesaw basic introduction, some Zoom features, what is Clever, and then we will definitely finish with a Q&A time.
So for those of you who don't know, Aeries is our platform that we use to take attendance, to use grades and other types of reportings. So as teachers, we can create and update our grade books. Like I said, we can take attendance. We can also link and upload grades from our Google Classroom. So that's kind of the main reason why we're talking about that today, because I know a lot of people are using Google Classroom for distance learning. So we wanted to kind of talk about how you can kind of link these two up so it's more productive and it's better, more efficient for you as a teacher.
So when we first look at Aeries and you log in, this is essentially what it's going to look like. And you'll see a menu on the left-hand side. That's where you're going to be able to access your gradebook, attendance by photo, which is definitely going to be key for the start of this year. And then under that, you'll be able to access any student data, viewing reports, being able to print reports. You can also email out reports to parents. There's so much just within Aeries for us teachers to be able to find.
And then when you are in Aeries, you'll see, when you start creating gradebooks, you'll see them populate underneath your classroom summary section. If you don't see them right away and it just says like class summary, you don't see those gradebooks, go ahead and click on that down arrow next to class summary, and then those gradebooks will populate there for you. And then what you'll see here is you'll also see buttons next to your gradebooks that say add website. And then this is where we're going to go to connect our Google Classroom with our Aeries gradebooks.
So once we click on the add a website, this box will come up. There's going to be a couple options. You'll see under Google Classroom options, the create button and the link button. If you choose to create, all of your students that are in your Aeries gradebook will automatically get populated into your Google Classroom. If you have already created your Google Classroom, then that is where you can hit the link button and you can then link up your Google Classroom with your Aeries.
And then now you'll see when you look at your class summary and you look at your gradebooks, instead of it saying add website, it's going to say visit website. So for you as the teacher, you can click on the visit website and it'll take you straight to your Google Classroom. And then if you needed to edit the link or anything, you could click on the pencil and you could edit those as well. So this is awesome because you don't have to give your students a code. They don't have to try to enter the code. They don't have to do any of that stuff. You connect your Aeries gradebook with your Google Classroom and it auto populates your students in there for you. So all they have to do is they are going to, oh, this is just another view of, you'll see, it'll say visit website instead of add website. So if you needed to edit the links and stuff, you can click on that pencil there. So now what your students will see is instead of them having to go to Google Classroom, click on the plus, enter a code, hopefully they type the code in correctly. If they don't type it in, then it's a big ordeal. Now all they have to do is once you've connected your Google Classroom with your Aeries gradebook, they are now going to see your classroom there and all they have to do is click join. So it's going to take out a lot of the headaches, a lot of the um, misinformation. You'll avoid so much if you just connect your Aeries gradebook with your Google Classroom. So especially because we're going to be starting virtually, you won't have to worry about getting a bunch of emails of I didn't the code didn't work for me, I didn't type in the code correctly, whatnot. All they have to do is click that blue join button and they are in your Google Classroom.
So now we're going to switch focus and we're going to talk about Google Classroom. If you wanted a just written guide for your students, there's a link on here. When you get your own copy of the slides through the link that you first visited with the Zoom link and the password, you'll be able to access the slides. When you access the slides, that's how you'll be able to click these 3 links. You'll be able to get a video for students, a how-to guide for students, and then also a video for teachers that also just goes over everything we're going to talk about now and a little bit more.
And then on a little bit of a side note, I'm going through currently right now, and I'm doing a kind of Google Classroom series where I'm posting some blog posts and some videos on our YouTube channel, and it kind of breaks down each particular section of Google Classroom and kind of goes a little more in depth. So we're going to talk about those sections today, but then if you wanted to go through and kind of check out each individual section, kind of what you can do with it, some of the tips and tricks, you can check out the blog, or you can also check out our YouTube channel.
So the very first thing that we wanted to talk about with Google Classroom was all of your old classrooms from last year or previous years before that. What you have to do as the teacher is when you log into your Google Classroom, you're going to see those 3 vertical dots next to the name on the Google Classroom. You're going to want to click those, and then you're going to go to where it says archive. I definitely suggest you do this for all of your classrooms. Please, please, please click archive. The reason why is because when your old students log in this year, they will see every single Google Classroom that they have ever been a part of if you do not hit archive. So if they go into 5th grade, they will, and their 4th grade teacher didn't archive the Google Classroom, they will see that, and that can confuse them. If they're in secondary, they could see all 7 periods of their Google Classrooms along with the next 7 that they have for this year, which seeing 14 classrooms for them can get definitely overwhelming. So please go and hit archive. There's also that copy feature. If you don't want to get rid of the assignments or you want to see how you organized it still, but you don't want to have your students in there, you can copy it. And copying literally takes your old grade book that you had in Google Classroom and makes an exact copy, except it leaves your students out. So copy it if you want to save everything that you did, and then please archive the ones with your students in it.
And even if you archive it and then you decide, oops, there's like assignments that I wanted to use that I used previously, there's an option that will touch on that where you can reuse old posts and old assignments. So if you choose to archive and then you decide later, like, oops, I wanted to use an old assignment, you still have access to them. And then it's going to ask you if you want to make sure that you want to archive this class. Once you archive it, it can't be updated, obviously. The class will move to the archive, but all of your files and stuff will remain in Google Drive, because when you create a Google Classroom, it creates a folder in your Google Drive for you. So just because it's archived, those assignments and those documents and stuff aren't lost. They're still in your Google Classroom, Google Drive folder.
So when you log into Google Classroom for the teacher, at the top, there's going to be 3 different tabs that you'll be able to go through. The stream is your homepage. That's where you'll be able to post announcements, share links, documents, videos. You can have students right on the stream, or you don't have to have them right on the stream. Those are settings that you can turn on and off. The next tab next to it is Classwork. This is where you're going to be creating your assignments. You can create quiz assignments. You can pose questions, materials. You can reuse topics like Marshall was saying before. You can reuse different posts. You can create different topics. That way, everything within your classroom is organized. The People tab is where you can add co-teachers. You can add your paras. You can also add your students or de-enroll students. You can mute your students from the People tab as well. And then the Grades tab is amazing. It's gone through some nice new updates. The grades tab is where you'll be able to see all of your assignments at once. You can input all the grades, you can return the grades there. There's a lot within the grades tab that makes it really easy for us teachers.
So looking at the stream, so this is where, like Satara said, this is like the homepage. When they go into Google Classroom, this is the first thing that they see. So when you're on the stream, you'll notice something new, which is this Meet link. So over the summer, once we started doing this whole distance learning thing back in March, Google went through and they incorporated Google Meet into Google Classroom. So if you choose to use Google Meet, then when you are holding sessions with your class, the students can just click on that link and it takes them straight to the Google Meet session that you're having with your class.
And then when you click on the Classwork tab, you'll see a list of all the topics on the left-hand side. And then also at the top, you'll see another way that you can get to your Google Meet, Google Calendar, and Class Drive folder. And then if you look at this example, all of these topics are organized by date. And that's going to be one thing that I recommend to you when you're doing your Google Classroom, because we're going to have Google Classroom from day one all the way to the last day of school. There's going to be so much material for the students to sift through. Sometimes teachers like to organize their topics by subject. So math, ELA, or if I'm in science, I would do lab work, research work, speeches, group work. But as it starts getting even in November or December, those topics are going to be really, really long. And for our students that are absent, they're going to have a really hard time finding their work that they need to do or what they missed. And so to make it easier for ourselves as teachers, if you wanted to create your topics by day, that way the students know, okay, it's Friday, August 21st. I know exactly where I need to be and what I need to be doing. And there's no questions about it at all. So those are options of how to organize your topics.
Yeah, so just to kind of piggyback on that, some teachers, like Satara said, will do the topics by subject. Some will do it by day like this. Some will even do it by week, like, you know, things due this week, and that will be the topic at the very top. So kids know that they just go to that specific section and they're going to find all the things that are due that week. So it just kind of depends on what's going to work well for you and what's going to work well for your class and your students. So the great thing is that you can customize it to however it's going to work best for you. There isn't just one way um, to use this classwork section. So it's really, they've added a lot. They've added a lot of customization to it, so you can really make it and shape it to what's going to work best for you and your students. And so now we're going to move on to the people section. So this is just a list of all the teachers and the students that are in your classroom. So as you can see in this example, you can add co-teachers. So in this classroom, there's 3 teachers. So to add a co-teacher, all you're going to do is going to click on the little silhouette with the plus. You're going to type in that teacher's TUSD Google account email address, and you're going to invite them to your class. If you invite a co-teacher, they have all the same kind of rights and privileges that you do. The only thing that they can't do is they can't delete the class and they can't archive the class, but they can post assignments, they can delete assignments, they can see work, they can do all those things. Underneath that, you're going to see the student section. So you're going to see all the students that are enrolled in your class. If you wanted to add students directly from here, you could do that. If you have your Aeries and your Google connected, you won't have to worry about that because it's going to auto-populate, and every day it syncs overnight. So if you get a new student added, they'll automatically get added to your Google Classroom as well. And then another cool feature, especially now since we're starting virtually, is the guardian summary. So you can invite your students' guardians to receive guardian summaries, and we're going to speak about those a little bit more in depth here in a minute. But it's kind of nice because then they get some information about what's going on in the Google Classroom, and they can kind of stay up to date with things that are going on in Google Classroom.
So Guardian summaries, what the Guardians actually get is they get an email summary. They don't see anything that you post on the stream. They only see the assignments that are given to their specific student that's associated with their account. So they would see the missing work, so work not turned in. They would see upcoming work that you have assigned, any kind of class activity assignments and questions. Guardians who sign up for email summary, they cannot see the stream. They can't literally see the classwork. They can't see the people. They can't see the grades. They just get an email summary of just little snippets of what's included. They don't actually get access to Google Classroom. So they don't see what you see. They don't see what the students see at all. They can't click anything within the summary itself to open up something bigger. If you don't write instructions on an assignment, then the parents don't see those instructions in the summaries. Another thing is the parents can also choose the frequency in which they get these summaries. So they can get it weekly or every 2 weeks. And then how this works is you would type in the email of the parent. But let's say that I'm a science teacher. The ELA teacher already typed in that parent's email. Once I start typing the email, that email will show up. So it populates after some time. So the teacher would send an invitation to the guardian. And then after the guardian accepts that invitation, then they can choose when to get the email summaries for each student. And then by default, the email summaries for the classes are turned off. So as a teacher, you must go into the settings and you must turn this on.
So this is an example of what a Guardian summary would look like. So this Guardian has chose to get weekly summaries. So this is their missing work from last week. So it has the subject, it has the assignment, the instructions and everything on there for them. So as a parent, I can see what my kid is missing. And then I can also see if the teacher has things kind of pre-populated of like things that are going to be due in the coming weeks. They would be able to see, okay, here's the things that they missed last week. Here's the things that are upcoming this week. So as a parent, as a guardian, I can get a little summary of what's going on in the classroom and kind of have an idea of things that are due and whatnot. So they're not just kind of left out in the dark. They know kind of what's going on in Google Classroom.
And so the last tab that the teachers have is the grades tab. So when you click on that, you'll be able to see all of your assignments. If you've got 50 assignments in there, you'll be able to scroll through all of them. And then you'll be able to see all of your students. You can sort your students by first name, last name. You'll be able to input the scores on this page, or you could click on the individual assignments where you can open up each student's individual assignment and give them the scores that way. The really nice thing about the grades tab now is when you're ready to import all of your grades from Google Classroom to Aeries, you can return all of the assignments at once. So that's something that we're going to get into, is the returning the assignments and making sure you do that before you can actually input the grades into Aeries.
And then I just wanted to hit on some of the settings in the settings section of Google Classroom. That's going to be that gear cog in the top right-hand corner of Google Classroom. So the settings section is kind of broken up into 3 sections. So the first section is your classroom details. So here you can go through and you can change the name of the class. You can add a description of the class. If you wanted to have like a section and a room and a subject, those types of things, you could add those here. And then next is the general section. So here is where you're going to see things like your class code. Way back when we were talking about the stream and Satara was talking about if students can write on the stream or not, here's where you're going to kind of alter those settings. So with the stream, you can decide students can only comment on things on the stream. So maybe you post questions on there, they can comment on it. You can decide that you want students to comment and post, so then they can create their own post on there, or you can set it to where just the teacher has it, so then students cannot interact with anything on the stream. Going back to the class code, you're going to see the class code here. If you needed to, you could change it and you can have it create a new code for you. If all of your kids are in your Google Classroom, you can just disable it. So if this code got out and your kids decided that they wanted to give it to their friends, it wouldn't work because you have it disabled. The next section is classwork on the stream. So an option that you have is when you post something into the classwork section of Google Classroom, it can create a notification on the stream. So when the kids go into your Google Classroom, and the first thing that they see is the settings, you can have it pop up there where, you posted an assignment in the classwork section. So then they can either click on it right there, or they can go to the classwork section to see that assignment's details. And then you can decide, do you want it to just be minimal, where it just says the title of the assignment, or you can have it show details where it's going to show the instructions, it's going to show any type of materials that are attached to it on the stream. So just kind of depends. In this classroom, I had the notifications turned off just because I wanted my stream settings to just be announcements. I didn't want it to be kind of cluttered with other things, and I didn't want it to be confusing for the students. But like I said earlier, you can decide how you want this set up for your class. And then you can decide to show deleted assignments. That's only going to be for us as teachers. We would be the only ones that see that. And then down here is where you're going to toggle on those Guardian summaries. And then something new that you'll see is the Meet section. And so you're going to see your link if you want it visible to students. So way back when we started talking about Google Classroom, how there was that link in the heading part of Google Classroom, you can toggle that on so they see that link. And then also when they go to the Classwork section where they see the little Meet and the camera, if you have that turned on, they'll be able to see those there as well. And then just to kind of talk about some of the Google Meet Classroom integrations. So you can copy that link that Google Classroom created for your Google Meet, and you can post it like in an assignment. You can post it in a calendar event if you wanted to. Whether students click on that link that's created in Google Classroom, that's you posted an assignment or you posted on a calendar event, they can't join the meeting before you. And we're going to talk about this in a little bit, but just know that just because they have the link doesn't mean that they can get access to it before you're there. Once you leave and students are still in there, they stay in there. So again, we're going to talk about this, but make sure if you decide to use Google Classroom, or excuse me, if you decide to use Google Meet, you want to make sure that you're the last one that leaves, or you want to make sure that you give those kids the boot before you close out your Google Meet session. And then if you are on the Join Meet page, which we're going to talk about, they can't join a meet until you are actually in that Google Meet. Then, like I said, whether they click on the link in the banner or an assignment or an invite, they have to enter. There's going to be like a little code that they have to enter. So just know there are those kind of safeguards in place with Google Meet and Google Classroom.
And then, so another part in Google Classroom is the settings. So there's right under the Google Meet, there's even more settings for Google Classroom. You can just talk about all the grades. So do you want your grades to be total points? Do you want them to be weighted into categories? Do you want to show your students their overall grade? You can actually toggle that on or off. And you can add different grade categories. A lot of teachers love to add these grade categories because it helps them when they're doing their grade book, but it also helps students see, oh, okay, well, this was a quizzes, or this was a quiz or a test that we took on Google Form. This was classwork. This was group work. This is group activity. So it really depends on how you run your gradebook in Aeries, or whether you still do a paper gradebook. You can mimic all of those same features within Google Classroom themselves.
Okay, so now we're going to kind of shift gears, and we're going to talk about transferring our grades from Google Classroom to our Aeries gradebook. Again, once you have the copy of the slide deck here, if you wanted to click on the written directions, you can do that by clicking the link at the bottom.
All right, so the very first thing that you need to do before you can even go into your gradebook and transfer grades is you need to go into your Google Classroom and find that assignment that you're all done grading on. When you can do this in the grades tab, or when you click on the actual assignment, and you can click on the three dots and you'll see an option that says return all. You'll want to return all of these virtual assignments back to your student. So it's like, I'm not sure why Google uses this type of verbiage, but they do. And so it's like, once you've graded them and you're handing it back to the student, that's what return all means. So it means that you're literally giving the paper back to them so that you've actually graded it, it's all done. So once You click on those three dots, there'll be a return all feature. You'll also see this option if you open up each assignment individually. So then once you return all the assignments, you can go back into your Aeries gradebook and you click on that specific assignment that you've already created. So you need to have the assignment already created within your Aeries. And then you'll click on the assignment and there'll be a little down arrow that says show more. That's what you want to click on, because when you click on that, it'll show you a lot more options. And when those options show up, the very first one on the left-hand side will say import from Google. Once you click on that, a box is going to come up and you'll be able to click on the specific Google Classroom that's associated with this class or class period. Once you click on that Google Classroom, then you'll be able to click on the specific assignment. So you'll see the title of the assignment, the description, and the due date. Once you click on that specific assignment, a pop-up will come up that says you're about to import these scores, confirm or cancel. Then you would go ahead and you would click confirm, and all of the scores would populate. Now, this is where you'll find out what students have turned in their assignment and which ones haven't. So on this pop-up, you'll see that it imported one because there was only one person in the class. If you've got a class of 36 and it says that 30 scores imported and it'll say 6 were not there, that means that you have 6 students that were either absent and didn't turn in the assignment, or, and this has happened to me, their names do not match. So their Google name isn't associated correctly with their Aeries name because they could have like the same first name and middle name or the same initials. And so sometimes it's kind of funny. So that's something to definitely check. And in the pop-up that comes up, it'll be in red and it'll say what students' scores didn't import. And it could be that they were absent, and it could be that you didn't return their grades, or it could be just a naming convention that didn't match up. And then once grading is completed, in the upper right-hand corner of your assignment, you'll want to just check that box that says grading is completed and you are all finished.
All right, so we've been talking about Google Classroom and Aeries. Now we're going to kind of switch gears and we're going to talk about Seesaw for a little bit. So Seesaw is geared towards TK2, but anybody can use it. But we just kind of wanted to hit on this because I know I've been receiving some emails from teachers in K1-2, and they've been kind of asking about it. So Satara and I wanted to just kind of hit on this just to kind of give a little background about Seesaw as an option for you.
So what is Seesaw? It's a platform for student engagement. And students really get excited about Seesaw. They can draw on it, they can write on it, they can add voiceover. There's a little portfolio or a notebook that students can keep running throughout it. There's also a really great portal for parent integration with Seesaw. So Seesaw is just a wonderful platform that, you know, it's mainly used for TK2, but third, fourth, fifth, sixth grade, it's a great platform for all students. So we definitely wanted to highlight this.
And then, like other platforms, they have an activity library. So they have a library of pre-made lessons and things that you can kind of go through. You can filter by your grade level and subject, and you can find some pre-made digital lessons that you can add to your Seesaw classroom.
And then you can also hear what your students are doing. So it's kind of like Flipgrid, but within just the same platform. So you can hear them, see them write about it, hear their voices talk about it. They can input images. So it's just really great and a really good way to also give differentiated instruction.
It works on any device. So it can work on a phone, a tablet, their Chromebook. It works on anything. Teachers can create classrooms. They can find activities to post in their classrooms. Like we said, students can take pictures, they can draw, they can record their voice, and they can add it to their portfolio. And then the nice thing that kind of separates Seesaw from something like Google Classroom is there is that family integration. So families can see their students' work, they can leave comments on their work, they can add encouragement, they can do those things. So that's kind of the big differentiator with Seesaw, is that family integration.
So the first thing that you'll want to do to set up an account for Seesaw is you'll want to go to apps.seesaw.me, or you can just download the class app. And for you as a teacher, you'll want to click on I'm a teacher.
And then so once you get your account set up, this is going to be your view as a teacher. So um, a lot of the interaction is done through that big green plus button at the top. When you click on that, you can browse their activity library. You can create or share your own activity. You can post to a student's journal, and then you can also post out an announcement. And then you'll also see on the right hand side there, we as teachers, we have 5 kind of tabs. We have the journal, we have activities, we have inbox. Those are kind of the 3 main ones that you'd be interacting with. So journal is kind of, it is what it is. It's a journal. So if students wanted to kind of post, a daily journal, if they wanted to post writings or voiceovers, those types of things, they could do that there. You can also interact with them there. So you can post to the student's journal. You can reply back to them, those types of things. Activities, that's where you're going to be posting like the assignments. And then the inbox is where you're going to post any announcements to the class. Another thing too that we forgot to mention with Seesaw that kind of breaks it apart from something like Google Classroom is depending on the settings, you can set this up where students see just their work. So it's kind of like just a between you and them, like when they're posting their work, they're posting to their journal. It's just you and the student are the only ones that see it. Or you can choose to just have it open where when I'm posting, my work and stuff in the class, then all my classmates can see the work as well. So it just kind of depends on, again, how you want to have it set up, how you want it to work with you and your students.
And another great feature of Seesaw is the activity library for teachers. So you can search all of the pre-made lessons. You can search by grade and subject, and you can use what's already there. You can edit what's there. It's a great place to start out from. That way you're not recreating the wheel and creating everything from scratch. You can search for what you're looking for, what you want to do. And then the activity library is also a great place to start to see what you can do with Seesaw,
Mm-hmm.
because you'll have teachers that will create amazing lessons, and you wouldn't have even known that, oh, that this is even something possible that you could do with Seesaw and interacting with your students in such a fantastic way.
And so now we're going to switch over to the student view. So as a student, it looks very similar. I'm still going to have that big green plus sign where I'm going to do a lot of my interactions. But now on the right-hand side, I only have 3 tabs. So I have my journal, I have my activities, and I have my inbox. So my journal is where I'm going to be posting to my student journal. Activities, if my teacher posts an assignment in there, I'll know because I'll see that red indicator. So this one has 1 waiting assignment for me. And then the same thing would be true with the inbox section. So if my teacher was posting any announcements or anything, I would see that there. So as a student, if I wanted to post to my journal, I could click on that green plus sign, and then I'm going to see these options. So I'd be able to see photo, drawing, video, upload, notes, and links. So if I click on photo, it's going to use my device's camera and I can take a picture. So it could be a picture of me. I could take a picture of my work. I could take a picture outside, like maybe we are wanting them to do some descriptive writing, so they take a picture of something in their backyard and then they do some writing about it. um, Drawing, this would be where they could just kind of annotate on their screen. This would work really well like if they're using a device that has a touch screen. Video, they would be able to shoot a video, whether that's from their device or if they had one saved, they could upload that video. Also, with the upload section, if they are working on something in their Google Drive or if they had a photo that they wanted to share, they could do that as well. Notes, they would open that up and then they could take notes. And then link, they could add a link to, if they found like a cool website that they were searching or they had a link to a video or something, they could post that as well.
And then another option that students have within the student view is on the left-hand side. The first thing was the journal, but then the second part are different activities. So once the teacher posts activities or there's class activities, this is where the student would go to see those different activities. And then the activities would show up on the left-hand side. They could then click and see, okay, what do I need to do? What do I need to open? What are the instructions? And then you'll see that in this example, the teacher has put in different symbols, so actual images of what the students would be clicking on to help them navigate through.
So after they click on that activity, so this is their assignment, this is what it looks like when they open it. So this is very interactive. So this was a digital citizenship activity that they worked on, and they had to categorize the words. So words that lifted them up versus words that tear them down. And so they have these controls. So starting on the left-hand side, that T is for like a text box. So if they clicked on that, they could type on here. The little microphone, if they click on that, it'll record their voice. So maybe they sorted these out and then they had to give an audio explanation as to why they categorize these words in these particular ways. The camera would be able to upload an image into this activity. And then going down to the bottom, the hand is what they would click on if they wanted to be able to kind of click and move things around on this assignment. And then the pencil and the pen and the highlighter, those are different drawing tools that they would have. And then at the very end is the eraser, so then they could erase. And then on the right hand side, they have their color palette there where they can choose different colors of their for their pencil or their pen or their highlighter or whatnot. And then if they are going through and they kind of forget what the instructions are, at the very top there's a button that says view instructions. They click on that and it'll be able to show them the instructions for the assignment.
And just with all of these buttons, the kids are really, really fearless. They have been on phones and iPads and computers way more than we even know. And they will click and they will not be afraid to click and drag and move and figure it out. So don't be afraid of their capability because they could definitely do it.
And then here are just some links to resources that we've found on Seesaw and whatnot. So they just kind of link out to different articles and stuff about Seesaw.
That
So
very first link, I definitely recommend it. Seesaw walks you through how to set up the classroom, how to create an assignment, how to create an activity. And during the video, it says, okay, watch this, now pause the video and do it. Watch this, now pause the video and do it. So it's literally taking you step by step with everything. Seesaw also has webinars, live chat, live help that you can get at any time with all of their different trainers. So it's a great platform just for teachers if we're stuck and we need help.
all right, so now we're going to shift gears again and we're going to talk about Zoom and kind of some of the settings that we want to make sure that are enabled or disabled if we are using Zoom with our students.
So some setting must-haves is you must enable the waiting room. So the waiting room is when a student joins your meeting, they will be in essentially a waiting room, which they are waiting for you to literally admit them into the meeting. That is very, very important because we don't want to admit something that says iPad, iPhone. We want to admit the actual student name that also matches with your roster. You do also want to password protect your Zoom meetings. You want to turn off the link with the embedded password. So we want our students to type in the password. This is important with them learning digital citizenship, and it's also important with just keeping our Zoom meetings secure. And you also want to make the Zoom meeting link, you want to make it accessible from a browser. This means that a student doesn't need to have the app or open up an account in order to access any of the Zoom meetings.
So once you have everything all set up, you're going to obviously want to create your first meeting. So to do that, you're going to head over to zoom.us. So you want to actually go to the website, not the app. So I've been getting a lot of calls and emails from teachers saying that they can't figure out how to schedule a meeting, and come to find out they're trying to do it through the app where you need to do it through their website. So you're going to go to the website and you're going to be using your turlockusd.org email address. That information is going to come out later on this week with how to, because we're going to get all the accounts set up and whatnot. So you'll get that information. And then what you're going to do is you're going to go, you'll see on the left-hand side, it'll say meetings, and then you can schedule a meeting. And then you can go in, you can type in the topic of the meeting. You can set the date of when that meeting is going to happen and the time and all that stuff and the duration, how long you want this meeting to be. And then you're going to set up all those settings and then you're going to create the meeting. And then what you can do is you can take that link and you can copy it into your Google Classroom and you can post it either under a topic or you can post it on the stream. So I'm just thinking of all the teachers and all of our students who are going to start next Wednesday. Something that you could do, which would be very beneficial, is you connect your Aeries and your Google Classroom so the kids are automatically enrolled. All they have to do is they would go to Google Classroom, they would see their class, they would see your class there, they would click join. The first thing that they're going to see on the stream is they're going to see the Zoom link, join our Zoom here. The link's there, they click on it, boom, now they're in the waiting room because you have that enabled and they're waiting to join your first class. So they don't have to do a lot. It's you just kind of have it set up for them. So that's going to make it really easy, especially for this very first meeting that we're going to be doing on August 12th. So just to try to take away any of the kind of barriers and stuff for them to get to that Zoom meeting. Then you don't have to worry about sending the link home and sending the password home, all that stuff, and then who knows where it's going to go. This way, if they know, if you're sending home a letter or anything, you can just tell them, go to Google Classroom, join my class, click on the Zoom link, and you don't have to give out any of that information. And when they join the Google Classroom, you can have the link there, you can have the meeting password, and you know that just your students are the ones that are getting that information.
And then so some meeting controls that you have with your students is we're going to just start at the very top in the upper right hand corner, gallery view versus speaker view. So the picture is showing you speaker view. If we were to hit gallery view, it would show you all the different tiles of all your students. Zoom can show you 49 people at a time. So you'll be able to see all of your classes, no matter if your class is 24 all the way up to 36 or 38. So you'll be able to see all of your students if you choose gallery view. And then if we go all the way down to the bottom, starting on the very left, audio controls. For you as the teacher, you can mute yourself. You can also stop your video. So those are the audio controls and video controls all the way to the left. Then if we keep going, there's the security button. So those give you security features, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. So you can lock the meeting. Let's say all your students are in, you can just lock the meeting just to give you a little bit more security. If you forgot to enable the waiting room, you can enable the waiting room right here. If for some reason you allowed your students in the settings to share their screen and you have students trying to share their screen, you can turn off that ability here. Or let's say that it's, the end of August, the beginning of September, or October, November, December, and you have students that need to present. You can now give them the ability to share their screen here. If you've got the chat going and you want to turn it off through the security, you can turn off the chat. If you don't want to allow students to rename themselves, you can turn it off here. If you have a student who's just not paying attention, who's not listening, who's not following all of the rules that you as a teacher have set forth, and this is what we need to do, these are our digital citizenship rules, these are the rules we need to follow during our Zoom meeting, you can remove that participant and then contact your admin about it. And then if we keep going, right next to security, we're going to skip where it says invite because your students will already have the link. But where it says participants, for you as a teacher, it should say manage participants. And that will be how you can mute individual students. You can see who raises their hand. You can kick students out that way. You can create hosts or co-hosts. Then you'll see the green share button on the bottom. That green share button is what you're going to be able to click if you want to show students what's on your individual computer screen, or that would be what you would click if you want to connect your document camera. So let's say you're on your desktop at school and your document camera is normally hooked up to your computer. You don't have to do anything special with your document camera. All you do is click share and choose document camera as an option, and it will automatically connect. Then there's also a chat function, just like we have right here. Your students will also have the ability to chat. Make sure that you turn off that private one-to-one chat. You just want to have the classroom chat going. The chat feature is amazing for students to be able to just ask questions, talk to each other, rely on each other's support. And then breakout rooms. Breakout rooms is awesome. You have that function technically now within your free account, but when you get your paid account, it will have a little bit more features. With breakout rooms, you can move students into literal like rooms. So they'll all be in rooms away from the regular meeting. You as a teacher can pop in and out of all these rooms. You can send out an announcement to all of the different break rooms. You can bring them back, put them back in. You can rearrange students. It's an amazing feature that I definitely suggest that you test out with your PLC. And then the very last one is leave meeting or exit meeting. With Zoom, you can leave the meeting and exit it for everyone. So you don't have to wait for all of your students to leave, as with Google Meet. You can just close the meeting for everybody and it's off.
So some other settings that you definitely want to check out are you can set it up where the students are muted upon entry. So once they join your Zoom, they're automatically muted. You can turn on attention tracking. So if they have the Zoom window open and they decide that they want to like minimize the window and have something else open, then you would know as a teacher that the Zoom window isn't the most like upfront window. Attendance reporting, so you can take attendance within Zoom. So at the end of the day, after all of your Zoom sessions have been completed, you can go into reportings, print out a report for the day. You can see who entered your classroom, how long they were in there for. So then you can take attendance that way. You can add virtual backgrounds, so it kind of just adds a little fun to the meeting. Um, you can disable saving the chat. You can, like we talked about, disable private chatting. So if you had this enabled, students could be chatting with each other on the side, and as a teacher, we wouldn't know that those things were happening. Like we talked about, you want to make sure that you allow the breakout rooms. There's a whiteboard feature, so you can have a digital whiteboard up where you can be annotating on your screen. So all of our Chromebooks are touchscreens, so we could pull up that whiteboard within Zoom if we wanted to, and we could be annotating on our screen. You can do polling, so you could throw out questions. You can have the students polled, and you can kind of get real-time feedback from them. We talked about sharing our screen from our document camera, and there's a lot more amazing settings within Zoom. So definitely take some time, kind of dig through the settings to make sure that you have everything set up the way you want it set up.
The only thing I'm going to say is that annotations, we
Mm,
did put in quotation in parentheses to be careful with these, because if you turn on annotations for the student, then they can write on your screen at any time.
yeah,
So if you're going to have annotations off, turn it off for the student,
yeah.
because even if you don't have the whiteboard feature up, they can draw anything they like at any time. So that's just one thing to be careful for.
It's a nice feature that if you had like text up and you wanted to be annotating the text, it's nice, but then you do run that risk that they can be annotating at any time as well. So kind of our recommendations for setting up your Zoom, this is what it would look like for like a secondary. Um, but create one session that technically starts at the end of the school year. So you'll see like these sessions start May 31st, June 1st, those types of things. And then you're just going to use that link and that password throughout the whole year. So you don't have to go through and make a separate Zoom session for every single subject or every single period. You would just have, if you taught 6 periods, you would have 6 links. And what you're going to do is you can post those links into your Google Classroom. And for us as the teacher, what I'm going to do is, like, for example, on next Wednesday when I start first period, I'm going to click on my meetings, and we have it cut off here, but on the right-hand side, on the other side of meeting ID, it's going to say start. I can just click start and it'll start that meeting. And then when I'm done, it stays. It doesn't go away to like my archived meeting. So it stays there. So I can go through and I can reuse these meetings over and over and over again until they're technically supposed to start. So we've been kind of playing with this. We've been kind of testing it out. We have some secondary teachers kind of use it, and they've given us positive feedback, says that it works nicely for them. So do you have to set up your meetings like this? No, but this is just kind of a recommendation that we have for you on this. And then for our elementary folks, instead of doing periods, our days broken up by subject. So you can have an ELA one, you can have a math one, you can have a science social studies one, and then you just reuse those throughout the whole year, or as long as we are doing our virtual distance learning.
And then for these, because why set up this versus reoccurring meeting? If you set up a reoccurring meeting, you will have an actual
Mm.
meeting ID for every single day and time. So let's say that you're a secondary teacher and for first period, you set up a reoccurring meeting Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday from now until the end of the year. That means that you will have 182 different meeting IDs and different spots that you will have to go find first period on that specific day and click start.
Yep.
And then you will have 182 second periods and 182 third periods. Same thing with elementary teachers. Now, with elementary teachers, one thing I would suggest is make your passwords the same all day for all of your students if you're going to have different meeting times, just because it'll be easier for
Yeah.
them because you have those same students all day. But for secondary teachers, creating different meetings for each class period also allows you to have different meeting IDs and different passwords. And then you can create a whole new set for the new semester for especially if you switch out kids every semester, you
Yep.
can create a whole new set of meetings. Or if you have a student that ends up sharing the meeting link, then you can create a new meeting. Or like same thing with Google Meet. We had a student who joined a different Google Classroom than they weren't supposed to. And that teacher just kept having to kick out that student every time. So at least with Zoom, you have the ability to lock your meetings and have that waiting room. That way you're not accepting new students. But I definitely suggest setting up your meetings this way instead of the reoccurring meetings, especially for secondary. That way you're not sifting through so many meetings.
Yeah, this way is going to be way cleaner on your end. You're only going to see these six, or if you have five subjects, those five subjects, instead of the tons and tons and tons that you'll see if you did a reoccurring meetings. All right, now we're going to shift gears and we're going to talk about Google Meet. So, like we kind of talked about when we were talking about the classwork, or when we were talking about Google Classroom, how to get started is you want to make sure that you are in the settings section, you have Google Meet enabled, and you have that link to be visible by students. So then they can go in and they can click on the link, whether it's in the header of the classroom or if they are in the classwork section, they'll see that button for Meet in there. So like I said, you can have that link in the header section of Google Classroom. Once you have that turned on, they'll see the link, they can click on the link, they can go straight to it, and they can join.
And then for some other settings, like or how to get here, when you go to your Google Classroom, you want to click on the settings. So it's that cog in the upper right hand side. Scroll halfway down until you see Meet. And then you're going to click on the button that says Generate Meet Link. Now, you're only going to want to do this if you decide to use Google Meet instead of Zoom. If you're going to use Zoom, since we all have our paid teacher accounts, do not generate the Meet link. If you still want to use Meet, then this is what you'll do. So then after you hit Generate Meet Link, you're going to want to toggle a button on that will make this Meet link visible to students, and they can click on it at any point in time. And it doesn't matter, it won't do anything. The only time that they'll actually be able to get into the class through that Meet link is when you are joined into that meeting.
So once you have all those settings set up, they're going to see it in these two spots. So they're going to see it at the top of the Google Classroom, and then they'll also see that button when they are in the Classwork tab.
All right, and then how to prevent students from being in the meeting without the teacher. So the only thing that you need to do is you have to be the last person to leave the meeting. So if you are in a virtual meeting with your students using Google Meet, all of your students have to leave before you leave. If you leave and your students are still in there, the meeting will keep going. The students can also add other people to it. If you leave, they can try to add other people from their same class into the meeting. They can stay in there for as long as they want. That meeting will not close unless you are the last person out. And then you can kick students out because we know when we want them to leave, they won't. So if you open up the People tab, which will be on the right-hand side of the Google Meet, you'll be able to individually, unfortunately, you'll be able to individually go and kick out each individual student.
And then how are you going to be able to see your students while sharing your screen? So this is true for not only Google Meet, but this is true for Zoom as well. So if you're using one device, so let's say, for example, you're using your Chromebook, there is a keyboard shortcut that you can use if you use the Alt plus the bracket. If the bracket's towards the right, it's going to put that window on the right-hand side. If the bracket's on the left, then that it's going to put the window on the left-hand side. Everyone in their classroom is going to have two monitors now. So what you can do is you can open up those windows. You can drag one window that has all of your students onto one monitor, and then you can have your screen sharing on another monitor. So like right now, I have two monitors set up, and on one monitor, I have our presentation going, and on the other monitor, I have our Q&A section. So I can kind of see both things happening at one time. So this is just a way that you can see your students and see what you're sharing at the same time.
And I would definitely recommend that you show your students how to do this. They
Mm-hmm.
will have a Chromebook and they will want to look at two things side by side. So definitely share your desktop screen with them when you're on a meeting and show them how they can put things side by side, because it will definitely save them some headache and heartache, because all they have is a Chromebook. We will have two separate screens like Marshall was talking about, which is awesome, but our students won't. So please show them and share with them how they can do this.
So before you join a meeting in Google Meet, it allows you to kind of go through and kind of check your audio, make sure that your screen sharing is set up the way you want, if you want the video on, if you want the video off, those types of things. You can kind of set all those things up, and you can make sure that it's the way you want before you actually go in and join the meeting. So when we were talking before about the join now screen, this is what we're talking about. So when I'm here, I haven't actually joined the meeting yet. I'm getting ready to join it, but I haven't joined it yet.
And then some in-meeting controls in Google Meet. So once you're in there, you'll be able to access your meeting details. This will be where it'll also give you the dial-in options. You can copy the joining information. You can attach attachments into the actual meeting that your students can pull from. You can mute and unmute yourself. You can end the meeting only when all of your students have left. You can turn on or off the camera. You can add closed captioning, which is awesome. It's the same closed captioning feature that Google Slides has. So when you present in Google Slides and you turn on closed captioning, it will write everything that you're saying. This is the same thing with Google Meet. And then you also have the option of sharing your screen, but in Google Meet, you have to click where it says present now. And then at the top, you can see who is present by clicking on the silhouettes. You can also click on the chat feature at the top, and then there's more options. When you click on the more options, this is where you'll have the ability to record the meeting for a short amount of time, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. You can change the layout so you can see all of your students. You can go full screen. You can, again, turn on captions from here, and then you can go into other settings within Google Meet.
So like we've talked about, students cannot enter a room early. So if our meeting was set for 11 o'clock and they wanted to jump in at 10:45, this is what they're going to see. They're going to click on that link in Google Classroom, and they're going to see this. They're going to see it where it says you can't create a meeting by yourself. So they can either return home or they can click reload. So what I would suggest doing is just either have them close that tab and wait till the meeting starts, or they can just reload it and it will kind of refresh the page to see if you are in the meeting.
And then when students go and they actually join the class, this is what they'll see. So they'll see a picture of themselves. They'll see who is in the call, so the teacher that's running it. And then they'll see a join now or a present button. One of the things with Google Meet is there is not a way to turn off students presenting in the Google Meet. So technically, I could have joined Marshall's call by presenting my screen right away, and there was nothing that he could do. So that is definitely one thing that you need to keep in mind. But this is the screen that the students will see. They'll be able to check their camera behind them, make sure that what they have behind them is school appropriate, and then they can hit join now.
And then after we've ended our meet and all the students have left and we ended the call, it will immediately, if they try to come back after we've left, it'll give them this. They can't re-enter a meeting that's already ended. So it'll say this meeting's already ended, and so they can't try to re-enter a call that's already been completed.
So some common Google Meet questions that we're getting. Google Meet is stealing a ton of features from Zoom, and when are we going to get them? So they're stealing the features of you can mute everybody, you can take off sharing. All of those releases are going to be available on September 30th currently. Google just released that, but this date can change. And a lot of these features are also only going to be available on a paid Google Enterprise account. And currently, we just have the Google for Education normal account. We don't have the Enterprise account. And then, does Google Meet have breakout rooms, attendance tracking, and muting all students? So, no, they're going to get it. So, they're stealing all those features from Zoom. They're going to get it, but we will not have access to those features because that will be within Google Meet's paid enterprise account, and we just have the normal school for Google for Education. And then does Google Meet stop other students from joining? So a lot, especially in secondary, teachers love the fact that Google Meet was restricting students just within their Google Classroom. But then we had students that were sharing the class code with other students and were joining the classroom that way. Or they would have their friend attend class for them in April and May last semester, where they just gave their friend their Google email and their login, and their friend logged in, put on a hood, and sat in the meeting for them to be present instead of their friend actually being there. So our students are finding workarounds to everything. So there's no 100% way, I feel, because our students are going to keep sharing. There's nothing that's stopping them from sharing their Google password and email. But take it how you want, depending on your students that you're going to have. I know you won't know your students right away, but you'll get to know them really quickly, and you'll see if maybe Google Meet's better or Zoom is better. But with Zoom, you'll have the option of turning off screen share. You can mute them. You can give them different chat features and functions. There's different reactions they can do. So everything has its little caveat, but Google Meet is nice in the event that if your students haven't figured out a way to share their emails, links, and passwords or join their Google Classroom, or if you didn't disable that Google Classroom code, then you'll have students join. But those are just some answers of just frequent questions that we get about Google Meet.
Okay, quickly shifting gears onto Clever, we're going to kind of hit Clever and different things that you can do as a teacher with it. So when you go to Clever, the nice thing is all of our students, when they log into their Chromebook, this is the first thing that they see. So it forces them to go straight to our Clever page. So as a student, they would just click on student login, click on their Google account, and they're in. As teachers, we would click on teacher login, enter our credentials, and enter into Zoom or enter into Clever.
And then so Clever is our portal for single sign-on. Elementary's been using it for a really long time. Secondary, it's kind of brand new to us, and we've just now been using it in secondary because all of our textbooks, a lot of them have an online component. So when a teacher logs into their account, this is what they'll see in Clever. They'll first see a page that's shared with just their students, a page that's just for you, and the district page. There's a lot of different resources here. And if you wanted to add different links that would go straight to your students, you could add that on the page that's shared with your students. You could add different links just for you. And then you can see different resources that the district has made available all through Clever. And it's nice because you won't have to sign in or remember your password for every single individual site. Same thing with your students. They just click one thing and then they're in.
And then, like we talked about, you can create your own page in Clever. So if you wanted to have all these links to things that you wanted your students to go to, You can create pages in Clever, and there's a just for you section. So those are resources that you would just be able to see. And then, like Satara said, there's a district page where there can be resources that the district shares out with teachers. So once you create your teacher page, you can go in and you can add different resources, links to things, all right here within Clever. So when your students log in, they'll see your teacher page. They can click on that, and then they can have just one-click access to different resources that you wanted to share with them within Clever. So this is what that would look like. So they would have, the teacher page at the top there that they could click on, and then it's going to have their secondary sign-on, their single sign-ons, their Google apps. All those things are accessible to them right here through Clever.
And so if the student were to click on the actual teacher's page and you added, as a teacher, you can add different links or different apps to your specific teacher page that you're sharing with your students would be able to see it. So this teacher added the teacher website, which is Tech and TUSD. So they added that for students. You could add specific research sites that you go to. Maybe if you're in elementary and you're doing Daily 5, you could add Epic or different sites that your students would go to hear stories being read to them. Or if you're in secondary, you could add different websites that your students would visit for different research projects or videos, or different links to, even if you have your own teacher website that's completely separate. If you made a Google site or something in Blackboard, you could link to that here.